My name's Jennifer, and I thought I'd done everything right. For 18 years, every extra shift, every canceled vacation, every worn-out pair of sneakers went into one place: the college fund for my daughter, Mia. $199,000. That number was my private trophy, the proof that I had beaten the odds as a single mom. Then one morning, I opened my banking app and felt the floor vanish beneath me. My joint savings account, the one I'd naively kept with my mother for security ever since I was 19, showed a balance of exactly zero. One single transaction, $199,000 withdrawn under authorized user. The name was hers. My mom. I drove to her house with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, replaying every sacrifice I'd made for that money. When I confronted her, my voice was low and deadly calm. "Where is Mia's college fund?" She didn't flinch. She actually laughed. "Thanks for funding your sister's wedding," she said, like it was some kind of joke, like she hadn't just burned my daughter's future to the ground. Then she added, almost casually, "And no, Jennifer, you're not invited. It's a small family event. You understand." I smiled, but it felt like my face might crack. "Sure," I whispered. "I understand perfectly." Moments later, as I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed. My dad's name lit up on the screen. When I answered, all I heard was his voice breaking on the other end. He was crying. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about everything my family had been hiding for years. I sat in my car in front of my mother's house, staring at the steering wheel as my dad sobbed into the phone. I'd never heard him like that before. "Jennifer, I didn't know she actually did it," he choked out. "She told me she was reallocating some family funds, but I never thought she meant your savings, honey." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "Dad, it was my daughter's college fund. Every dollar I put in that account was for Mia. You knew that." There was a pause, just the sound of his uneven breathing. "Your mother said the account was still joint," he murmured. "She said you weren't using it, that we'd help Rebecca get her dream wedding, and then figure things out later." I thought she meant she'd pay it back somehow. His words twisted in my chest like a knife. This wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated. Growing up, money was my mother's religion. She'd grown up poor, always reminding us how she'd had to fight for every dollar. But somewhere along the way, her fear of poverty warped into an obsession with control. Money wasn't security to her, it was power. She decided who got help and who stayed desperate. I'd watched her bail out my younger sister Rebecca more times than I could count. Paying off credit cards, helping with rent, always with the same excuse: "Rebecca just needs a little boost. She's the baby."
Me?
I got lectures about standing on my own 2 feet. And I did. I worked nights at the hospital, mornings at a tiny cafe when Mia was small. While my mother was buying designer bags on sale, I was calculating how many textbooks I could afford this month. So when I realized she'd used the joint account loophole to strip nearly $200,000 from my daughter's future and funnel it into a wedding I wasn't even invited to, something inside me snapped. "I'm going to fix this," I told my dad, my voice steady now. "I don't know how yet, but I'm not letting her get away with it. Not this time." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a notepad, writing down everything I knew about the account. Every date, every deposit, every statement. I underlined one fact over and over again. The account had been created for Mia's education. I had the emails, the paper trail. My mother might have the money now, but I had something she'd never considered: evidence. The next morning, I dragged myself to work on autopilot. Between patients, I caught myself staring at the clock, counting down the minutes until I could talk to the one person who had never once made me feel small: Liam. Liam wasn't Mia's father, but he'd stepped into our lives like he'd always belonged there. He knew about the joint account. He knew how long I'd been saving. When he walked into my kitchen that evening with takeout bags and a worried look, I didn't even try to play strong. I told him everything. My mother's laugh. Her dismissive, "Thanks for funding your sister's wedding." My dad's tearful phone call. Liam sat quietly as I spoke, his jaw tightening. When I finished, He exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. This is bad, but it's not hopeless. Because you didn't just throw money in a box under her bed, he said, tapping the table between us. You have records. You have proof that this was intended as a college fund for Mia. That matters. He was right. I kept every bank statement, every email confirmation when I transferred money into that account. Step 1, Liam said, leaning forward. We organized your documentation. Step 2, we talked to the bank. Step 3, we talked to a lawyer. I blinked. A lawyer? You think this is a legal case? He gave me a look. Jennifer, she took $199,000 from a joint account that you funded almost entirely by yourself with a clearly documented purpose, your daughter's education. She used it without your consent to fund someone else's wedding. At the very least, that's something the law will take seriously. At worst for her, it's fraud. That word, fraud, hung in the air between us. My mother, who loved to brag about her reputation and respectability at church and in the community, being investigated for fraud. I couldn't deny the small, vicious flicker of satisfaction that sparked in my chest. 2 days later, I took a personal day from the hospital and walked into the bank that had held my savings hostage for nearly 2 decades. Liam came with me, not saying much, just a steady presence at my side. When we sat down with the branch manager, I laid out my folder of documents on his desk. This account was opened 18 years ago in both my name and my mother's. I began, my voice steady. It was created for one purpose, to fund my daughter's college education. I contributed almost all of the money you see here. I slid a highlighted statement across the desk. Last week, my mother withdrew the entire amount without my knowledge or consent. The manager adjusted his glasses, scanning the papers. Legally, he said carefully, a joint account gives both parties the right to withdraw funds. I'd expected that speech. I understand that, I replied. But I wanted on record that this was done against the intent and understanding of the person who funded the account. I want every detail of that withdrawal, who approved it, what ID was shown, what was said at the counter. That afternoon, we met with a lawyer recommended by one of Liam's coworkers. Her name was Sandra, and she had the calm, sharp gaze of someone who'd seen every kind of family disaster. After listening to my story and flipping through my evidence, she leaned back in her chair. Legally, your mother had the right to access the funds, she said. My heart sank. Then she continued. But that doesn't mean she's safe from consequences. The key here is intent and documentation. You have emails where you explicitly refer to this account as your daughter's college fund. You have proof you are the primary contributor. If we can show that your mother misrepresented her reason for accessing the funds or used them in a way that constitutes unjust enrichment, you may have a strong civil case. With Sandra's guidance, we focused on building a clear chain between the stolen money and the wedding. Liam helped me compile a spreadsheet tracking every large payment my mother had made in the months leading up to the withdrawal. The pattern was obvious. Big transfers to vendors, often just days after deposits for my paychecks. We also started quietly reaching out to vendors. I posed as a family member, helping coordinate finances, and asked for duplicate invoices. You'd be amazed how quickly people will email you sensitive information if you sound just stressed and polite enough. One florist even forwarded a message thread between my mother and Rebecca where my mother wrote, "Don't worry about the cost, darling. Your sister's college stash is finally good for something fun." That email became Exhibit A. The evidence is piling up, but will Jennifer have the courage to confront her family at the wedding? Stay tuned. The wedding RSVP never came for me or Mia. Officially, we were ghosts. Uninvited. Erased. But I had no intention of staying away. Not because I wanted to ruin a party, but because that was the one place everyone involved would be in the same room. My mother, my sister, Jason, extended family, all the people who had quietly benefited from my silence for years. On the morning of the wedding, as I zipped up a simple dress, I looked at myself in the mirror and realized something. I wasn't a scared daughter anymore, begging for crumbs of approval. I was a mother about to walk into a room full of people who thought they knew the story and show them the real one. The venue looked like something out of a magazine. White chairs in perfect rows, fairy lights wrapped around trees, flowers cascading from every possible surface. As Liam and I walked up the path, I could feel eyes following us. We weren't supposed to be there. That was exactly why I'd come. At the reception, the music was loud, the food was lavish, and the bar was open. People laughed, danced, made toasts. My mother moved around the room like a queen at court, accepting compliments on how spectacular everything was. She didn't notice me at first, tucked near the edge of the room with Liam and my dad. The DJ invited everyone to quiet down for speeches. Rebecca and Jason took their seats at the front table. The best man spoke. Then the maid of honor. Laughter, clinking glasses, tears. Then the DJ said, "If anyone else would like to share a few words, now's the time." I stood up. The room shifted. Conversations paused. A few whispers rippled through the crowd. I walked toward the center with my heart pounding in my ears, but my steps never faltered. "I'd like to say something," I said, taking the microphone. My mother's smile froze on her face when she saw me. "Jennifer," she said through her teeth, "this isn't the time." "Actually," I replied calmly, "it's the perfect time. You see, everyone here has been talking about this beautiful wedding, about how generous my mother is for making it all possible. I think they deserve to know how she paid for it." I opened my folder and held up the first page, a bank statement, enlarged and printed clearly. 18 years ago, I opened a savings account in my name and my mother's name. It was meant to protect money for my daughter's college education. Every overtime shift I worked, every tax refund, every extra dollar went into that fund. I walked slowly as I spoke, letting the pages catch the light. 6 days ago, that account had $199,000 in it. Then one transaction, a full withdrawal processed by my mother. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The truth is finally out in the open. What will happen next? Don't miss the final part. My mother's face had gone pale, but she tried to recover. "This is a private matter," she hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said softly but clearly. "You're embarrassed because I'm telling the truth in front of people you wanted to impress." I held up another page, the florist's email thread, printed and highlighted. I read aloud. "Don't worry about the cost, darling. Your sister's college stash is finally good for something fun." "That's what you wrote, Mom." The room erupted into whispers. Jason stood slowly, eyes fixed on the document. "Is this real?" he asked, voice tight. "You used your granddaughter's college fund for our wedding?" My mother's mask finally cracked. "I did what needed to be done for this family," she snapped. "Jennifer would have wasted that money on some out-of-state school. Mia can get loans. This wedding is once in a lifetime." My dad stepped forward then, voice trembling but clear. "Jennifer's telling the truth," he said. "That account was meant for Mia's college. We all knew that." The room shifted again. Now eyes looked at my mother with something sharper than curiosity, judgment, disgust. I looked at Mia, at Liam, at my dad, then at the guests. "I'll be pursuing this legally," I said. "I won't let her bury this under family drama or guilt, and I won't let my daughter pay the price for my mother's greed." In the weeks that followed, the lawsuit was filed officially. Jennifer versus my mother, seeking restitution of the $199,000 plus damages for emotional distress and unjust enrichment. The family chat exploded. Half the relatives took her side immediately. The other half stayed silent publicly but sent me private messages of support. Mediation was tense. Eventually, faced with the strength of our documentation and the looming threat of a judge, my mother caved. The settlement required her to liquidate some assets, take out a loan, and downsize her lifestyle dramatically. The house she'd once bragged about went on the market. She cried publicly about her ungrateful daughter forcing her into financial ruin, but privately, she paid. Every payment was wired into a dedicated account under my name only, with Mia as the sole beneficiary. This time, there were no joint signatures, no loopholes, no room for misunderstandings. The first time I logged into the new account and saw the balance climbing back up, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself in weeks: hope. Months later, standing on Mia's future campus for an orientation visit, I watched her turn in a slow circle, taking in the buildings, the energy, the buzzing possibility in the air. "We're really doing this," she breathed. "After everything, I'm actually here." I squeezed her hand.
"You are," I said.
"Because you earned it. And because this time we didn't let someone else decide what you were worth." As for my relationship with my mother, it never really recovered. We went low contact. She still tells anyone who will listen that I took her to court over a misunderstanding. But the people who matter know the truth. And more importantly, so do I. I used to think being a good daughter meant absorbing harm and calling it love. Now I know better. Being a good mother meant standing up to my own mother to protect my child. If you found my story powerful, please like this video, subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories, and comment below with your thoughts. Would you have done the same thing in Jennifer's position? Have you ever had to stand up to family for what's right? Share your story in the comments. We read every single one. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our next video. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes protecting the ones you love means drawing the hardest lines.